So let's take a look at the bigger picture. I just pulled this offline because I think it'll give you a good idea of a few things. First of all, you don't have to know everything. And this is an example of someone's workflow, of a basic workflow. So for an animated something, or it could also work for games or animation, but let's take a look at it. So you got story, and then there's art design. That's all your 3D modeling. Your story is your writing, obviously. And then this can go to art design, can then go into scripting, which is writing the script. And then that can go into storyboarding. But we got this, which will go into 3D modeling. Now, you can go 3D modeling, and you can also sculpt. So you have modeling and you have sculpting. Those are two similar things, but also separate. I'll explain, but not right now. So from 3D modeling, you're going into texturing and shading, meaning you are adding textures and shades, and you are either hand painting it or putting textures, or you're using something like Substance or whatever. And then Blender also has that capability. Then you have animation setup, and you have character rigging, which means that if you are making a character, then you need to put a rig inside of the character so that it works, so that it moves. And then if you're doing an animation or a movie or film, there's particles and effects, there's animation motion, you got lighting, there's camera setup, there's rendering, which means you are rendering out the image. For those of you that are 2D artists, when you render something in Photoshop, you're either rendering it in PNG or JPEG or whatever. You render in 3D, which it also has the ability to render in those, but also animation, obviously. There's also the rendering, and there's also compositing, and there's video and sound editing. That's the big picture, and I just showed you an example of this. There's plenty of different examples, but you don't have to learn all this. I know that there's the 3D generalist, and that's cool, but the 3D, if you're becoming a 3D generalist, you're in some sort of school, and that almost always takes a few years or 2 years or 3 years, and you're learning all of these disciplines. And that's cool if that's what you want to do. Please go for it. But in the beginning, this course that you are learning, we're just going to concentrate on a few different things. Mostly getting over the fear and the frustration of 3D. That is the biggest hurdle that we are going to jump over. We're also going to do a little bit of modeling in Blender, and I'm going to show you how to play around with some of the sculpting tools so that you get a better understanding. Again, I'm not making this course to be the ultimate in-depth Blender course. I'm specifically making this for those of you that are 2D artists and you want to get into 3D, but it was way too intimidating for you, or the very beginner who's tried to do it over and over again and everything was really confusing and you didn't understand. The instructor was moving too fast, even though it was a beginner course, but you found yourself having to stop and pause. I'm going to limit the information to get you started. And then you can take those beginner courses and what have you, and find out your own path. And very, very many times, if you look for 3D or CG jobs, you're just hired to do texturing and shading, or you do texturing, or you do rigging. You don't do all of this. Even in a smaller studio, you might do more than one of these things, but just letting you know. And the other thing that I want you to keep in mind is poly count. There is low poly, and I've also heard mid poly, but then there's high poly. Usually there is low polygon modeling. So if I look over here, right in this first car where it says 15K, and I pulled this image off of line, you can see that you can still see the polygons. And if you're confused on what polygons are, the next video is going to show you what polygons are. That's 15K. So when you increase the polygon count, you are getting more detail. However, if it gets above, you have to work within the constraints if you're making a video game. And I don't know the exact numbers, so you're going to have to look that up depending on what you're trying to do. Don't worry about the poly count right now, because you're a beginner. If you're going to do a video game, there's plenty of things out there that will let you know what this game engine can handle or what is good for animation. And I say that not to be vague, but in August of 2021, we're on the cusp of Blender 3.0 being the newest Blender release in December. We are also somewhere within the vicinity of this course of this time. There is Unreal Engine 5, which has some different things. So there will always be new software and new software capabilities, and the technology will just be able to increase things. So that's what I want you to keep in mind. So 15K, that's a lower poly model. You might even be able to go lower than that. For low poly, you might even be able to go 5K. And you can just see as it increases the poly count, you are getting a higher resolution. So just think about it this way. This 15K low poly. So let's look at what we would consider high poly, high detail. That can be, and this is probably really old because it says 480K. If you're on ZBrush or you start to sculpt in Blender and you have a high resolution model, you could have a million polygons. You can have a few million polygons depending on what your machine can handle, right? So you can have a few million polygons in this hyper detailed model, but if you got a million polygons, that's not workable for a game engine. It's just not right now. Who knows? Unreal Engine is making some bold claims. But we'll see. We will see. But I want you to think about it like this. High res image, millions of polygons. That's your 4 to 8K monitor, right? And low poly is the old school tube cathode. What is it? Is it cathode ray? The tube TVs that are like 360p. So 360p versus 4K. So I want you to keep that in mind. That's what that is. That's what the polygon count is. And also for those of my video game people out there, Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation. All the PlayStation games, those were low poly objects. That is low polygon modeling. And you can use people still use low polygon modeling, but I want you to keep in mind that that's what that is, as opposed to something like any one of the current video games, from Spider-Man to Horizon Zero Dawn, or any of the fully animated Pixar 3D movies or whatever. So that's the difference in that. So I'm going to stop talking. The next video, I'm going to give you an explanation of when they're talking about polygons, how to decipher that. So I'll see you in the next video.